Today, we're going to talk about a feeling that is so common, but can make you feel completely alone. We're talking about imposter syndrome. We're going to break down exactly what it is, who it affects, and, probably the most important part, what we can actually do about it.
So let me just ask you this. Have you ever been in a meeting, or maybe just sitting at your desk, and you get that little pit in your stomach? That feeling that any second now, someone is going to walk over, tap you on the shoulder and say, "We know you don't belong here." You know, that sense that you're an undercover fraud just waiting to be exposed?
Well, if that sounds familiar, you are in very good company. That feeling actually has a name, Imposter Syndrome. A huge systematic review by Dr. Dina Bravata and her team defines it as this internal experience where high achievers, people with clear objective successes, just can't seem to own it. Instead, they live with this constant nagging fear that they're about to be unmasked as a total phony.
But here's the thing. Imposter syndrome isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. A leading researcher in this field, Dr. Valerie Young, has actually identified 5 distinct types. So, as we go through them, ask yourself, does one of these sound a little too familiar?
First up, we've got the perfectionist. For this type, success isn't a spectrum, it's a tiny, perfect target. They set these incredibly high standards, and even if they hit 99% of their goal, all they can focus on is that 1% they missed. It feels like a total failure. It's an exhausting all-or-nothing game to play.
Next, we have the superhuman. Now, this isn't just about being perfect in one area of life. It's about being perfect in all of them. They feel like they have to be a rockstar employee, a flawless parent, a perfect partner, and a great friend all at the same time. So they just pile on the responsibilities, believing that's what it takes to be truly worthy.
Then you've got the natural genius. Their whole belief system is built on the idea that if they're truly competent, things should just come easily to them. So when they have to struggle or work hard to learn a new skill, they don't see it as a normal part of the process. They see it as proof that they're just not smart enough.
And then there's the soloist. For this person, asking for help is the ultimate sign of failure. They have this deep need to prove their own worth by doing every single thing themselves. This means even a successful team project can feel like a personal failure because they didn't do it all alone.
And finally, we have the expert. This type measures their competence by how much they know or can do. They're terrified of being exposed as inexperienced or unknowledgeable. So this is the person who won't apply for a job unless they meet every single bullet point, or who feels they need just one more certification before they can really get started.
Okay, so now that we've seen the different flavors of imposter syndrome, the next big question is, who feels this way? Let's take a look at just how widespread this really is, and where these feelings might even come from in the first place.
The numbers here are just wild. That big review we mentioned earlier, it looked at dozens of studies and found that the prevalence of imposter syndrome ranged from as low as 9% all the way up to 82%. Now that huge gap tells you it's a tricky thing to measure for sure, but the real takeaway is that this feeling is incredibly common.
So, what about gender? This part is fascinating. The data is basically split right down the middle. That same review found exactly 17 studies that reported women experience more imposter symptoms and another 17 studies that found no significant gender difference at all. So yeah, the experience is widespread, but the research is definitely still evolving on this.
So what's feeding these feelings? Well, research points to a kind of cocktail of factors. Certain personality traits, like perfectionism or having low self-esteem, can make you more vulnerable. Your upbringing can also play a huge part, especially if there was a lot of pressure to achieve. And then there's a really key social factor. Just being different from your peers, whether that's because of your race, gender, or background, can crank up those feelings of not quite belonging.
And you know, this isn't some new idea. The term imposter phenomenon was actually coined way back in 1978. It came from a landmark paper by 2 psychologists, Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Ammon Imes. They were studying these highly successful women who, despite all their amazing accomplishments, all shared this deep-seated belief that they'd somehow just fooled everyone.
Okay, knowing the types and the history is one thing, but what's the real-world impact? Let's dig into the toll this takes on people, especially in the workplace.
It often plays out in something called the imposter cycle. It goes like this. A new task pops up, and it immediately triggers anxiety and self-doubt. That leads to one of 2 things, either massive over-preparation or procrastination followed by a frantic last-minute push. So you succeed, and for a brief moment, there's relief, but then you immediately dismiss it. You don't think, wow, I'm good at this. You think, phew, I got lucky, or I only pulled it off because I worked myself to death. And here's the killer twist. Instead of building your confidence, that success actually reinforces the idea that you're a fraud. You feel like you've just fooled them again.
And living in that cycle, it has serious consequences. It leads directly to more stress and eventually burnout. Over time, it can chip away at your job satisfaction and even your performance. It makes people scared to take on new challenges or go for that promotion. It totally stifles creativity. And as a ton of studies have shown, it's strongly linked with making depression and anxiety even worse.
This brings us to a really important shift in how we talk about this. For a long time, the advice was all about fixing the individual. But as this quote from the Harvard Business Review argues, that's only half the picture. Ruchika Tolshan and Jodi-Ann Burry point out that the workplace culture itself, with all its hidden biases, can create the very conditions where these feelings are almost guaranteed to pop up.
So all of this leads us to the most important question of all. What can we actually do about it? And the answer seems to be a two-pronged solution, one that addresses both the individual and the environment they're in.
Okay, so on a personal level, there are strategies you can use. You can start by reframing your whole idea of competence. It's not about being perfect, it's about being able to learn and grow. It also means you have to actively practice owning your successes without adding a but or downplaying them. A huge one is to break the silence. Talk about how you're feeling with friends or mentors you trust. You'd be surprised how many people say me too. And honestly, just becoming more aware of that negative little voice in your head is a powerful first step.
But this isn't just on individuals to solve. Companies have a massive responsibility here. They can create environments where people feel psychologically safe to speak up. They can build cultures where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities, not reasons to get fired. Things like providing mentors, championing real collaboration, and actually prioritizing diversity and inclusion, these aren't just corporate buzzwords. They are concrete actions that create places where everyone feels like they belong and can do their best work.
Which brings us right to this final crucial question. For years, we've called it a syndrome, which puts the problem squarely on the individual's shoulders. But as we understand this more and more, we're being forced to ask, is the problem really a personal failing? Or is it a perfectly natural response to a flawed system?